In the last episode, Altair made her way home safe and sound and arrived in Scotland. We had to pull her out of the water almost immediately as her engine room was flooded due to a serious leak in the exhaust. We knew we bore a little bit of a project, however, over the next few months we would find quite a few surprises, some of which were good and some not so much.
It's very windy out there.
Yeah, welcome to Scotland.
This episode will talk you through the first part of our winter maintenance, from our cleanup to upholstery change and to some interesting finds as we got to know the boat. Once Altair was out the water, the boat yoga and cleaning commenced. The boat had quite a build-up of general gunk, oils, dirt, and it was very moldy throughout. So our priority was to get the boat clean, ventilated and decluttered.
Talk about ventilation.
Talk about ventilation.
This is one of the worst ventilated boats I've ever come across. 1995, I don't know how the designer didn't think ventilation was a good idea. There's one ventilation in the forward part of the boat, and it supposedly ventilates the forward cabin and 2 bunk cabins, but that's it. So it's kind of...
It was awful.
It was awful, yeah. It's like
really
a lot of stale air. By comparison, the older boat, the Westerly we used to have, it was like fresh air fortnight. You could stand under one of the vents and your hair would ruffle.
We were prepared to replace the vinyls as they looked really, really stained and yellowed out, and that was one of the first things that we noticed when we came to view the boat. But before we got ourselves into a rather costly job, we scouted Amazon and invested in the drill brush kit. It worked a treat.
Certainly did. So Scotch Brite on an impact drill, and with a bit of just water, detergent, and a squishy bottle, and cleaned it up amazingly. It was night and day. You could see a definite line between white, nice new vinyl and grey, minging old grey, horrible, dirty, deteriorated vinyl.
The drill brushes also came in use for a whole bunch of other things, including almost every bilge on this boat.
Yeah, they're very handy for getting into little nooks and crannies. Certainly the engine room benefited from it, the engine benefited from it, the bilges, every little nook and cranny that you're trying to clean into, the deck, yeah, it gets right into the gel coat non-skids. The teak got cleaned with a drill brush, with a 2-part cleaner, and it's come up brand new. Stuff like that, yeah, it's really made it look good.
So they were essentially a win, and we'll pop a link to the brushes in the description below. As we began to clean and declutter, we got to know the boat, where everything was, and a few surprises arose. This actually took us quite a few weekends and was an all hands on deck mission. Well, some of us just watched Luna.
How do you do?
Hi!
A couple of issues came to light. So several leaks from a few deck fills. The exhaust was leaking. It had a big hole in it in the bend up underneath the lazarette. That was filling up the engine room bilge quite nicely. There's other little leaks, people drilling holes and screwing up through the deck. We had a few deck fills that were leaking, they were the more worrying ones of all, because they come down very close to the main structural bulkhead for the chain plates. You don't want that area rotting out over time, so I'm glad we caught that in time. And I think it was possibly exacerbated by me jet washing the area. May have had something to do with it.
That may have had an effect.
Yeah. So Altair had a horrific leak drilled through the cockpit sole. Someone tried to fit wires before I'd drilled up from below, and he'd missed getting into the binnacle, and he came out on deck. And have a quick look down there. So we've patched that all in, sealed it, so nothing's getting through from the binnacle now, but there's a load of jobs in here that we need to do as well. Oh, well, how did we repair the leak in the deck?
It was a brainstorming mission.
It took a fair bit of thinking through how we could do this without removing the binnacle.
which we really didn't want to do because it was way too much effort.
We had a lot to do. So removing the binnacle and destroying the teak on the cockpit sole would have been far too much work. We had to take out the steering sheaves from beneath the cockpit. We had to do that anyway because the cables were deteriorated, and we wanted to change to the Dyneema steering lines anyway, so we did that. Once that was out, we were able to see the area, and it is a rotten pad, I know that. We drill filled and drilled it as much as we could to stop the water penetrating further into the wood, and then put it all back together once we cleared it all out, removed all the rock. On the deck, we cut a little bit of the teak away, and we put a little GRP pad that we laminated up with gel coat. Once that was in, we were able to seal it all up with a teak deck sealer. It's not a perfect job.
Leaves much to be desired, but it's fixed and it's dry.
Yeah, the cockpit isn't down flooding into the boat now, which is a good place to be. So another immediate issue that we had to deal with was the fuel lines. So somehow this boat had a screw in its primary fuel line since 1995. So I've been stripping the old insulation out of Altair's engine room. I'm very glad I did. Wait, you see this? Right. Fuel feed, and fuel return to the tank, and down here, an insulation screw through the main fuel feed. That's been like that for God knows how many years. Kinda explains why the old foam insulation stank of diesel. Oh, glad I found it. So I've since removed the screw. There we are, fuel valve off, fuel valve on, fuel valve off, fuel valve on. Oh my god, how we didn't die on the delivery, I do not know. Words fail me. So that was that. We just had to strip them all out, so I've still got the job to do to replace all that.
And I guess we'll replace the insulation at some point when we know that there's no more leaks in there and everything else is fine.
Yeah.
That we've kind of
I want to do a bit more
this
on the engine. I want to clean it, I want to strip it in places and paint it, and once that's all looking good and I'm quite happy with it, I'll insulate. It's easier to work in there without the insulation, it's quite cramped. For a big boat, it's quite a tight engine bay.
we have fairly good access to it from kind of every side in a way. So
We do now, yeah, with the insulation.
so we've cut half the after cabin.
Yeah, it's better now.
So, well, Chris has been dealing with all sorts of leaks and mechanical/electrical troubles. I focused on a slightly different project, and that was the boat upholstery. So the saloon seating and the mattresses were in horrid conditions.
Presenting.
Frankly, when we picked some of them up, the materials were literally falling off of them. It was disgusting. They were kind of blue and, was it gold? I couldn't really call it yellow. It was just strange and stripy, and it really wasn't our thing. So we were not keen on them in the slightest, on the colours and patterns, so I decided to replace it all. And in an attempt to replace everything, do on a budget, we pretty much had to do it ourselves. So I decided to get a sewing machine and learn to sew, which was interesting to say the least.
It didn't look like she was learning. She just looked like she knew.
Well,
Straight in and
yeah, after about 20 hours of YouTube.
I'm sitting on one of our first cushions, and it just looks like a brand new cushion.
Okay.
It's beautiful.
Anyway, I eventually ended up purchasing one of Singer's heavy duty machines, which was much cheaper than a Sailrite, and it seemed far more beginner friendly. Next up was fabric research, and in comparison to the standard fabrics that we're looking at, marine fabrics often prove to be double or triple the price, if not worse.
Sunbrella, Solida, yeah.
Yeah, they were really, really expensive, and with how little experience we've had with sewing, really, we didn't really want to spend hundreds on fabric and
What was it,
mess it up.
25 quid a yard or something?
Yeah, something like that. So instead we went for good quality fire retardant fabrics across the boat, but none are actually intended for marine use. So once the sewing machine arrived, the work began. It took a few weeks, but eventually we were able to take a whole new set of sewing cushions to the boat, and it certainly made quite a difference. In our eyes,
Transformed the boat.
it really did. We were more than happy to really get rid of the blues and golds and greens and everything else, and she kind of began to feel like our boat. So the cabin mattresses in the aft cabins were awful, uncomfortable, in really bad condition,
Moldy.
and moldy, really moldy.
Spores.
They were black.
Compressed to millimeters thick.
Yeah, so
We dreaded spending a night on any of them.
and after we did clean up a little bit, we kind of got them half clean and looking, but after a couple of nights, we were just wanted to really go home. It was miserable. It wasn't comfortable at all, and the last thing we wanted to do was sleep on an uncomfortable bed after spending an entire day working on the boat.
Well, I had good success with using an old IKEA mattress on my previous boat. So we templated and we cut in an IKEA mattress and redone the cover for it, and it works a treat. It's like a good 8-9 inches thick of memory foam, and it's
The IKEA mattresses were a hit. They are honestly triple the comfort of. Eventually, I think we'll probably replace most of the mattresses with decent IKEA ones across the boat, but the bunk cabin mattresses and the V-berth mattress, they weren't actually in too bad a condition, so we just kind of made new covers for them, and that was it. But again, they're no longer blue and moldy covers, they're nice and fresh.
So a couple of months into our winter refit, Altair was really beginning to feel and look like the boat we envisioned when we bought her. There was plenty more work to be done, and next week join us for a full galley refit to see how we went from this to this. And if you don't want to miss the next episode of Sailing Ragdoll, like this video, hit the subscribe button below, and thanks for watching. Till next time!